What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Cash Compound Podcast. And today we've got a special guest. It's Robby.
Hey,
it's one of our gentlemen that's actually on the mapping team, the after production team that makes the custom and complementary tools. And so what we're going to do is actually get to know him a little bit. Why don't we jump straight into it? Why don't you tell everyone who's watching at home? So we've got listeners. Sometimes folks are listening via their cars, or apparently we've got a lot of truckers who like to listen to our podcast. So that's on Apple and Spotify. But we also put the video version of the file on YouTube. So that's why we got to dress nice and look pretty good. Right. But why don't you tell everybody who's listening a little bit about yourself and how we're connected?
All right. So, hey, my name's Robby. I hang out and live down in Florence. And I've been part of the mapping team here with the Money Multiplier and the Cash Compound for about 2 years now. Started really with my first policy probably about 3 years ago.
Well, why don't you tell us how you got introduced to banking in the first place?
All right.
How did you?
So probably about 5 years ago, I came across Pam Yellen's book, Becoming Your. What is her book called?
I think her book is called Bank on Yourself.
Bank on Yourself, yeah. Right? Yeah. So I started reading her book. I read it and was totally intrigued because nobody ever taught me how to think that way. So I read her book and didn't really do anything, like most people probably. Read her book, put it down, was interested, and then didn't do anything. And so continued to live my life paycheck to paycheck, and for some bizarre reason found Brent Kessler's video presentation on the internet about 2 years ago. And so, of course, I watched his presentation and was totally intrigued again and thought to myself, this, like everything else I'm reading these days, is too good to be true. And so I was like, well, I might as well at least give it a shot. And so what I did was I opened a really, really small policy on my daughter.
Okay.
Because, you know, if I lose $100 a month, I mean, yes, that's real money, but I'll survive. And so if it's a scam and Brent's ripping me off or whatever, then who cares? I'll just take my hit and go to the next thing. Well, the problem was it worked. And so what I did was I decided to open up another policy on myself and then opened up one on my wife. And so now I have three. Just started my fourth one, is in underwriting now, and used it to pay our cars off early, pay off any debts that we had. And now I'm really looking forward to working towards retirement. And that's what I want to do, is help people figure out how to use these banking policies towards retirement.
Very cool. Well, the cool thing about what you mentioned is Pamela Yellen's book, Bank on Yourself. She's actually got a different book that's actually based on retirement. Now, I've ordered the book, but I haven't been able to read it yet. It's on the shelf, but I haven't been able to read it. Have you read her book on retirement?
I've read some of it, I believe. Okay. I don't know that I finished it because I was just doing so many other things, but I think it's the book Jeremiah sent me. And,
very cool.
So, yeah, I've been working through that, too. So,
very nice.
Cool.
Now, you mentioned you started with one policy kind of to test the waters. And then after you realized it was working well, you've now evolved to three different policies. So what did that look like to you? What do you mean by I tested with one and then it worked, so I got more? What does that mean?
Well, so, you know, I heard in Brent's presentation and talking to you and even watching some other agents' videos and stuff where, like, you know, the money in your policy grows with uninterrupted compounding interest, no matter whether you take it out or not. And I'm like, well, that doesn't make any sense, because if I go to a bank, I pull money out and the money's gone. So how does this work? And so as I started this little policy with my little girl, you know, I paid monthly $100 a month or whatever it is, not that much, and then let it build up, you know, 4 months, $400 in, and take out about $250, whatever the number is. I'm like, well, I'll take it out and see the money go away. Well, the money never left. It's still there.
I love it.
Growing with uninterrupted compounding interest. And so I was like, wow, I wonder if I put any real money in, what could possibly happen? So I started doing that. And like I said, paid off my debts, paid off my wife's car early.
Sure. Now, a lot of people, we get the questions a lot. Now, Robby's evolved from those first policies, testing the water, to three policies, to actually he's one of the gentlemen now that are on our mapping team, or sometimes we call them our tools creation team, which are the folks that help you after your policy has started, map out what you want to accomplish. So you had mentioned like paying off cars with it. You had mentioned some other stuff that you've done. I don't. What were the other
Basically,
things?
just paying off. I have a business credit card that I use. Just paid off a credit card.
Okay, paying off cars, paying off credit card. I've done lots of cool things with my policies as well. In the time that I started my first policy until now, I've had 2 children, so we had to take care of those. A wedding to pay for, all sorts of things that happened, and so I've done all sorts of things. So sometimes people ask, like, what can you do with the policies, right? Sometimes we get that question, like, what should I do? What could
Vacations.
I do? It's like anything, right?
Absolutely.
It's like whatever you want. Now, you also mentioned something that was very unique. You said, when I go to a bank, I put the money in, but then if I go back to the bank, I take the money out, and then the money's not there anymore. Right. But that's not actually what's happening inside your policy.
No, not at all. It's amazing.
Sometimes I use the analogy or the illustration like this. So, Robby, let's say you go to the bank and you put in $100 a month, and let's say you did it 4 months in a row. You mentioned that. So $400 you've put in your bank. And you come back the next day, you walk into the bank or you walk to the ATM and you withdraw $200. How much money would be left in your bank account?
Only 200.
Only 200. But what if you deposited $100 each month? So you have a total of 400 after 4 months, and then you went back to the bank and you got a loan or you swiped a credit card. Does that change the balance of your bank account?
Not if I get a loan.
Right. It's different. So both days you did go to the bank, and both days you came back with money, but the money came from 2 different places, right? And a lot of people aren't realizing that that's actually what's going on inside your policy, which is why you're talking about uninterrupted compound interest. It's because the insurance company will actually give you access to cash and dollars, cash value, that you can do stuff like babies and weddings and vacations and paying off credit cards and cars without actually losing your initial deposit or the growth that you'll get on the initial deposit. And when I discovered that, it's kind of same as you, it kind of blew my mind, right?
It's totally crazy. Why do they do that?
Yeah, I'm going like, what? How in the world? Let me get one of these policies before they figure out what they're doing. Exactly. You know what I mean? Now, obviously, that's not the case. They clearly know what they're doing, and we can explain to you how it works, just in case you are listening for the first time and you're a little taken back by that. But that's really the power of learning about banking and then implementing banking. So we get the fun role and responsibility of teaching people how to implement banking into their lives. So my question for you here is, has anyone ever gotten on the line with you, phone calls, Zoom calls, whatever it might be, and have just asked some outlandish things, like crazy stuff, like they're not understanding all? Do you have any experiences where it was like a crazy question that you're still laughing about or joking about to this day?
Nothing completely crazy. Just people don't understand that. I mean, they really don't understand how it works at all. I mean, they get on there and they're like, "You're crazy. It's a scam. You know, where did I send my check so you can deposit it into your?" I'm like, "You're not even paying me. You're paying the insurance company. I don't want your check. I don't want your money." But other than that, no. I mean, y'all on the front end as cash compound guys do a great job presenting what really goes on. And so by the time they get to us on the mapping side and the back end, it's pretty tame, pretty normal.
Good. One of my favorite, I don't know if you've ever heard this story. One of my favorite asks from someone as we were talking about banking. It's their first time. It's their first policy. They're just learning, right? We're talking about cash value, how you can use this money to go do whatever in the world you want to do. And even though you're going to use the money, your deposit is still going to be there, still going to grow. And then he asked the question about death benefit. Since we're building this cash value system inside of insurance, he says, well, what about the death benefit? Is that still there? And I said, oh, yeah, of course, that's still there. Your family will get it, or friends or charity, whoever you like. And then he said something to me that we've laughed about a few times on our podcast. He says, well, what if I don't die?
That's pretty good.
Right? And he took me back for a second because he didn't ask it in a goofy way. He was like, he had asked like 5 or 6 very good questions in a row and followed it by like, okay, so I get that it's still there, but what if I don't die? And so for a second,
Did you ask him his name was Jesus?
Yeah, exactly. I was like, wait a second here, that you got to go at some point, right? And these policies are built for your whole life. So when that happens, your family, friends, church, or charity will still get the money. So that is how that works. And that was a funny experience that I had. Okay, let me ask you a question. When you get people coming to you, first-time policy owners, they're ready to now learn and implement their policy. My question is, what are most people looking to accomplish? Is there like a trend that you see with most people?
So most people really want to get out of debt.
Okay.
And this is the ideal thing to use to do that. Other people out there are always talking about snowballs and running it into other things. And listen, I try that too. I'm not knocking it. But I'm just saying, if you put your money into one of these policies first before you do that, just take one extra step, it makes all the difference in the world.
I agree. Sometimes people go, well, if I have all the cash, I can just use that cash to pay off the debt. But the problem then is you no longer have
That's
the money.
Right. That's like me going to the bank, taking it out of my savings account.
Exactly.
It's gone.
And if there was any type of benefit for it being in the savings account, you've lost the benefit.
Right.
If there any type of interest earned or extra money you could have, it's completely gone. You took the money out,
over.
Right? And so the cool thing about it is you can continue those benefits with these policies while you still accomplish those goals, right?
Exactly. Absolutely.
And with the money's building, once you've completed the goal you wanted to accomplish, you've actually got more money in there to then go do the next thing, whatever the next thing looks like for you. So, okay, what about after people pay off their debts, pay off their bills? Is there any other trend? So they want to start with paying off things, and what's next? Do you see a trend?
A lot of times, and it depends on what they have, but I'm telling you, it's life-changing when you see people go from 0 to 2 years later, totally paid everything off. So then, they're coming to me, now what? I have all this cash. What am I supposed to do with it?
What a good question to ask, right?
Right.
Those are my favorite
problem
questions.
to have.
Right.
And so, you use it for investment. I'm not going to tell you whether to put it in crypto or the market or precious metals or rentals or whatever you're into, but we have people that can help you kind of figure that out. But at that point, they're like, now what do I do?
Sure. I love that. That's one of my favorite calls, right? Because I'm the same with you. Well, I'm not going to tell you what you should do with your own money, right?
Right.
But I will encourage you to go do something, right? Don't let it sit there.
No, absolutely not.
Right?
Use it.
Use it. They're paying the interest and the dividends off of your deposited dollars. That cash value is yours to use. So let's get it moving, right?
Absolutely.
Let's go do something. And so we've got lots of different avenues. If that's you as well, lots of different avenues where we can kind of point you to, well, here's what other people were doing, or here's what the guy yesterday said, or here's what I did yesterday, right? Because we use these policies too. So a lot of times we can just tell you what our experience is with them. Very cool. Now, so you mentioned helping people with retirement. That's really kind of the passion that you've got currently. So one of the things that we were chatting about is a lot of people don't kind of understand or realize that getting one of these banking policies, you're actually kind of accomplishing two birds with one stone.
You are.
See, we get on the airwaves here and we talk about cash flow, right? We talk about cash value. That's basically what our podcast episode's been about this far, cash value. But a lot of people don't realize that they're actually doing retirement as well when you talk about cash flow or cash value. So can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yes, sure. So amazingly enough, if you work your policy like you're supposed to, paying, taking money out, paying your loans back like you're supposed to, then when you're at whatever age you want to retire, you can actually withdraw money up to the cost basis and then take policy loans for tax-free retirement income.
Interesting. So walk us through that. Go a little slower. So you can withdraw money. So that's different from what we were chatting about earlier.
So you could stop putting. So when you retire, you're going to stop actively putting money into the policy.
Okay.
Because you're retired. You don't have extra income coming in actively. You may have some passive income, but actively money coming in. So you want to stop putting money into your policy.
Sure.
So what you want to
wants
do
to at some point.
Yeah, at some point you want to stop paying into it. So as long as you take out money towards the cost basis first, and basically what that means is if you put in whatever money you put in, you can withdraw up to how much you put in.
Oh, cool. So you're saying if I had a policy that maybe was like $10,000 all year, right? And I know that's a lot for some people who are hearing for the first time when you talk about an insurance policy. But as a reminder, these policies pay you interest on your deposit. So instead of trying to get like the lowest premium ever on insurances, which is basically how all other insurances work, if you understand the policy well, we're actually going for as high premiums as we can possibly go because they're going to pay us interest and at the same time give us cash value. Yep. So like, for instance, if I had a $10,000 a year policy and I paid that policy each year, and maybe I did it for 10 years or 20 years or 30 years, just however long I paid into it until I wanted to retire. And then I stopped repaying at retirement. So if I did 10 years, that'd be 100 grand, 20 years would be 200 grand, and 30 years would be 300 grand in total. That I put in over the time. You're saying at that point, I could not only continue taking the loans like I had been for 10, 20, or 30 years, but I could also have back all of the money that I put in.
Right.
That's nuts.
So, yeah, it's crazy. So we can actually run illustrations where you stop paying in. So I can tell you in 20 years, or for you, 30 years or whatever, because you're so young, we'll take that money. I'll show you how much you can pull out each and every year until you hit that number. And so what I'm saying is, like, I can show you pulling out every single dollar up to the cost basis and then taking policy loans and show you a yearly annual salary you're going to get tax-free.
That's crazy. Tax-free.
Tax-free.
That's
because you're paying to the you've already paid taxes on the money that you're putting into the policy.
That's right.
As premium. So you don't have to pay taxes again.
Interesting.
I don't know of any other retirement vehicle, 401k or anything like that. Everybody talks tax deferred. I don't want to pay taxes later because I don't know whether, listen, not that I'm saying that I don't trust the government, but I don't necessarily trust them to lower my taxes in 20 years.
Sure.
So when the taxes go up, I don't want tax deferment. Why would I want to pay more on taxes in 20 years than I'm paying now when I can pay zero? Zero is a better number for me.
I agree with you. So a lot of people aren't realizing that that's a possibility in these banking policies as well. And I don't know if the word I really want is a possibility, right?
Right.
It's something you can do.
Guaranteed.
Guaranteed, as long as you've got your policy,
right,
and that's your goal with it, right? So we get on the airways so much talking about cash flow, and I think that sometimes people get a little confused thinking that they don't have other options or there's not other things that they can do, when in reality there absolutely is, just like you're talking about. Yeah. Not only can you cash flow for 10, 20, 30 years, however long you've got your policy, doing all the cool things that we've helped people do or that we've done ourselves, but then you can also supplement or completely pay for retirement, just depending on what you've put in and how long you've been putting in there. Right?
Without question.
That's awesome.
It's amazing. These policies are amazing. They do so many different things. And, as I have an elderly mom that I'm trying to take care of too, she's still living at home, but there will come a day when she might not be able to live at home anymore. And so I know that my little girl probably is going to hopefully think about that as she gets older. I can use these policies for long-term care policies.
Interesting.
I can pull the cash out. I don't have to qualify it. I don't have to not be able to perform 2 of the 5 functions.
Sure. It's not specifically designated for something, so that means I can use it for anything.
I need to stay at home where I'm living on the beach in the Bahamas, and I want $5,000 a month coming in. It's cheap to live in the Bahamas, especially when I'm living on the beach. Have the money come in, and there you go.
I love it, man.
She can come visit anytime she wants.
We've got a comment of the week. Learn from Joseph left us a comment on our TikTok profile. So if you're not following us on the social media channels, we've got our TikTok. That is The Banking Bros. Instagram, The Banking Bros. Facebook, LinkedIn. We got all sorts of stuff. Go out there and find us. But Learn with Joseph left us a comment on one of our latest videos. And we were teaching a few things about financial literacy like we tend to do on the social waves. And he says they definitely don't teach financial literacy in school. I wish I had learned this earlier. What's your thoughts on that?
I tell almost everybody I talk to on a mapping call that if somebody had shown me this 20 years ago, then I would be sitting on the beach instead of talking to you on the phone. But they don't. I never learned any of this growing up, which is a shame either to the public school system or just not knowing,
Absolutely. I agree. They're not teaching this in school. And in fact, it's not really being taught in a lot of other social circles really as well, right? I've got plenty of friends, colleagues, people that I've known in my lifetime who still after work or after church or whatever it might be, they're talking about the returns that they're getting in the market or what the average was or look how much this is doing, right? And it's just so different, kind of sort of the conversation that I have with people who understand and utilize their policies well, right? Because it's no longer it went up by so much and then it's not doing so hot. And,
right.
This happened yesterday on TV on CNN, so that might change a few things. It's just not that anymore, right?
Oh, yeah.
Guaranteed rising compound interest and dividends from these companies that we use.
Give you a bonus for no reason.
Yeah, that's crazy, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks so much for joining us on another episode of the Cash Compound Podcast. Before we jet, we've actually got to give a shout out to our fan follow of the week, which is Jasmine Dodal. Jasmine, thank you so much for following us. She's actually a subscriber on YouTube.
Very nice.
And so she's recently subscribed in the last week. We wanted to give you a shout out. So if you're watching this video, thank you so much for doing so. Leave us a comment or write a question in, and we'd be more than happy to answer it for you on one of our next episodes, or jump in the comments and get it. Thank you guys so much for your time. If you're interested in learning more about the infinite banking concept or about us working directly with you, then please reach out. Click the link in our bio or click the link in the comments. We'll talk to you guys next time.
Thanks, man.